you're spending a lot of time on the road, there's one thing that's more important than anything else: caffeine. That's why in this episode, we're gonna take you on a tour of some of the best coffee shops in Pennsylvania. But first, we gotta talk about this thing. Yeah. Way back in 1913, the Lincoln Highway Association, a group of automobile enthusiasts and industry officials, set out to establish a coast-to-coast highway from San Francisco to New York City. Long story short, this was the Lincoln Highway, a road that predates both the Eisenhower Interstate System and Route 66. On maps, you'll see it marked as Route 30. Since its inception, the Lincoln Highway was, and still is, a veritable treasure trove of roadside oddities.
Like this giant quarter. And this giant Pied Piper.
But perhaps none are more eye-catching and quirky than
the giant Bedford coffee pot.
The giant coffee pot, also known as the Koontz Coffee Pot after its designer David Koontz, was built in 1927. It originally opened as a restaurant, serving lunch to travelers on the Lincoln Highway. Oddly enough, it was never a coffee shop. In 1937, it became a bar, then later a bus stop, but over time it unfortunately deteriorated and was threatened with demolition in the 1990s.
But a group of locals didn't want to see their iconic coffee pot torn down, so the Bedford County Fair Association and a Lincoln Highway Preservation Group raised money to restore the pot in 2004 and moved it from over on this side of the highway to there, where it stands today.
The coffee pot is 18 feet tall and 22 feet in diameter. When you do the math, that means it could hold 800,000 cups of coffee.
It sits outside the Bedford County Fairgrounds, and occasionally during events, it opens as a gift shop.
Worth the detour? Absolutely. When it comes to coffee pots, they don't come much bigger than this. There's one just south of Saskatoon that's 24 feet tall, there's a 25-footer in Tacoma, Washington, and this full-size building in Lexington, Virginia. But as far as Lincoln Highway coffee pots go, this guy's the biggest. So let's say you're on a Lincoln Highway road trip, and you need coffee. Maybe not this much, but one good cup of joe to keep your engine running. Let's go on a trip across Pennsylvania on the historic Lincoln Highway to 3 can't-miss stops for a caffeine boost. We'll start in our hometown of Pittsburgh. Historic Route 30 cuts right through it, so let's head down to the Lawrenceville neighborhood, where you'll find Kickback Pinball Cafe.
And then one night I was at one of my friend's house, and he was like, "Do you want to go play some pinball?" And I was like, "Where is there pinball around here?"
Right here, at 4326 Butler Street in the heart of Lawrenceville, this coffee shop offers up an incredibly unique twist. It's also a full pinball arcade, with over 20 machines that attract both curious novices and pinball pros alike.
So you see a lot of pinball bars, but this is a pinball coffee bar.
Kickback wanted to go for a more diverse and family-friendly atmosphere. Not only that, but whenever the cafe opened in 2013, there wasn't a lot of coffee shops on the street. It just keeps it a little bit more open for all ages to enjoy pinball rather than just adults. We have little step stools for smaller kids to get up and be able to see.
And me.
Yeah.
The name Kickback suggests relaxation. But in the pinball world,
it is actually kind of like a safety mechanism for if you drain your ball on one of the sides. So there will be like a little piston with a pusher, and if your ball falls over the sensor, it'll say kickback and push your ball back out into the play fields.
This ain't your typical coffee shop. No smooth jazz and soft lighting. The sounds here are those of buzzers and bells. Lights flash and sparkle off the machines as everyone tries to make their mark on the high scoreboard while also enjoying some great drinks.
We use La Prima coffee. They're available right down the road in the Strip District on 21st Street. They actually make a blend for Kickback itself. It's just called Kickback simply. Some of our signature drinks though are the Nuclear Fallout and the Chernobyl, which are both the same drink. They both are steamed milk with a spice mixture of ginger, turmeric, and cinnamon in them. The only difference between the two of them is that the Nuclear Fallout has a shot of espresso in it, and the Chernobyl doesn't.
Got the Nuclear Fallout. It is fantastic. It has quite a kick.
Oh my gosh, this is so good! Chocolate cherry mocha, delicious.
Do you think that all the extra caffeine here, that it makes your pinball reflexes faster?
Yeah. I think that the coffee focus that you get, super focused, your caffeine rush, pairs well with the adrenaline that you get from playing pinball.
So we love pinball, but we're not very good at it. So we called up a pro, our good friend, Jordan.
Jordan's a pinball streamer, and a really talented one at that.
13-ball multi-ball. There's too many balls!
You can catch him and his crew on Twitch and all over social at Hub Challenge. There's links to all that down below. We told Jordan we wanted to go deep into the pinball world. He answered that by immediately popping open a machine and showing us all its pinball guts and organs. But really, I just wanted to, not suck so much. So if anyone could help me with that, it was Jordan.
It used to be like games like Big Game here where you hit a spinner, you get a bunch of points, and that was the game. Now there are storylines that are based in pinball where if you make this certain shot, you'll advance the story and the modes to complete to get to a wizard mode, which is like the final boss of the game.
But before I entered Pinball Wizard mode, we started old school with the 1980 classic, Big Game.
If it's flashing, shoot it. Pretty much a rule of thumb, don't flip both flippers at the same time. I know everyone's first reaction is to always flip it, but that'll put you in so much danger to start off with. I strongly suggest don't do that.
Okay.
And instead, try to concentrate on just letting the game come to you.
Okay, that doesn't seem so hard, right?
These drop targets over here have all the numbers on them. When you hit those ones, it'll complete a number on that card.
Oh!
And that will give you more points.
Hit the number drop targets. Got it.
Which is easier said than done, of course. Away we go.
That's better than I usually do at pinball. Your tips were really helpful.
So happy to help.
I tried to wait and think about it instead of just, hitting it.
But I really wanted to hit one of those drop targets. And the only way to get to that level in a short period of time is with a training montage.
You think you can handle this?
After spending a few hours here with Jordan, I really did get better. Unlocked this crazy multi-ball on Guardians of the Galaxy, went on tour with Guns N' Roses, even got attacked by a xenomorph.
And on top of having a wide selection of games, it has some of the best coffee I've ever had.
Oh yeah, that's right, coffee, on the Lincoln Highway. Where were we going next? Oh yeah, next we set out about 4 hours to the east to Lancaster, Pennsylvania. That's the home of Square One Coffee Roasters, where you'll find some of the best specialty coffee in Pennsylvania.
Oh, and when you're on your way out to Lancaster, you obviously have to stop and gaze in awe at the Haynes Shoe House. It was built in 1949 by Malin Haynes, the shoe wizard. But that's a whole other story.
So if you're wondering what specialty coffee is, it's coffee that places a really high emphasis on quality, all the way from growing and processing the coffee plants, importing the beans, roasting them, down to your barista brewing that coffee for you. It's all done with a very high emphasis on quality and care. Now, specialty coffee is not to be confused with specialty drinks, which are coffees that have extra flavors added to them, like a caramel frappuccino or a pumpkin spice latte. With specialty coffee, all of the flavors come directly from the coffee beans themselves. If you really want to dive into specialty coffee, check out a cupping or a coffee tasting like they have here at Square One.
Square One Coffee, a family-owned coffee roaster, put Lancaster on the specialty coffee map when it opened in 2000, a progenitor in the hip coffee scene that quickly started accumulating accolades at national coffee awards. So who better to walk us through the roasting process and a specialty cupping than Square One's coffee educator, Gabe Licadini.
So going through cupping allows you to sort of, one, if you're new, figure out what roasters you like. Two, it allows you to figure out what flavors you like in your coffee.
What does the roasting add or do to the coffee?
When we're roasting coffee, one, we're trying to sort of develop the flavors that are naturally in the coffee itself. Two, we're trying to develop the sweetness of coffee.
This is what the coffee bean looks like before it gets roasted.
Essentially what's happening between here and here is that we're creating a more complex sweetness that's visually represented by the browning.
And hanging nearby is the Coffee Taster's Flavor Wheel, which helps roasters identify the flavor notes in each of their coffees. Fine-tuning the roast to bring out certain flavor notes is an incredibly scientific process. This is a new batch of freshly roasted beans. Square One roasts between 2,000 and 3,000 pounds of coffee every week. I'm like scared to touch it.
Like petting a dog.
Oh yeah, there you go. After the initial roast, then you've got to filter out the oddball imperfect beans.
Unevenly roasted.
Gabe and Roaster Ian here are old school and can do it by hand.
Yeah, how did you pull one out on your first time?
Practice. A lot of practice. Now we don't really have to do that anymore because of that machine over here.
This is a coffee bean color sorter. The freshly roasted beans are sucked up into it, and the ones that aren't quite up to snuff are filtered out.
We were actually one of the first roasteries in the US to get this machine back in 2019.
So yeah, using an RGB program camera to trigger an air gun to blast slightly darker, lighter beans individually out of a cascading stream of roasted coffee to make sure every bag is perfect. Yeah, that's the attention to detail you get from Square One.
I'm very impressed by this whole thing.
Specialty coffee.
So now it's time to stop looking at the coffee and actually experience it with the coffee cupping.
The premise of cupping is sort of document and detail every step of the sensory experience. So first thing that we do, we smell the coffee when it's dry. We just want to make sure that it smells good.
And to do that, you smell the coffee after it's been ground.
Shake it a little bit to open up some of the smells.
Gabe immediately picked up some interesting notes.
It's like almost like cognac.
There's such a huge difference between each of these coffees, and you can tell just from smelling the grinds. Oh my gosh, this Zambian coffee, fruity explosion.
Wow, that's really sweet. It's like a strawberry creamsicle.
Putting on a timer.
Next step, wetting the grinds.
About 11 grams. What we're getting on the surface is a lot of CO2 pushing up the grounds. It creates a crust on the top of the bowl, which holds in a lot of those aromatics.
Then, smelling for changes now that the hot water is opening up the aromas.
It was the same flavors that I was getting in the grinds themselves, but like
a little bit more vibrant.
Yeah, they really hit ya.
At 4 minutes 30 seconds, it's time to crack open the crust.
This will release a lot more of those potent aromatics.
You can probably smell this just looking at your screen, right? I mean, come on, it's beautiful.
What I'm gonna do next is I'm going to clean off some of that scud.
Oh, I'm really starting to get the jasmine.
I'm getting like toasted like sticky rice.
And so, the crust is broken, the scud is cleared, and there's only one thing left to do.
Since we're at the 10-minute mark, we're gonna start actually slurping it. Woo! So we do a lot of work before we even get to taste it. Go in and...
Gotta work on my slurp.
A slurp spreads the coffee to all the taste receptors in your mouth at the same time.
Praline-y, like a nuttier taste.
Yeah, it's got like a vegetable or garden flavor, like a pea pod almost.
And while it may seem intimidating at first, it's a technical process with a big color wheel involved. Here's one really important thing to remember.
Is there a right or wrong answer?
That's why we do cupping. There's usually no wrong answer. Don't be afraid to name what you think you taste. Chances are you could be right.
No matter your experience level, going to a cupping is one of the coolest and most immersive ways to experience coffee. And there's no better place on the Lincoln Highway to do it than Square One.
So we've been spending a lot of time at Square One's roasting warehouse. So if you want to grab a cup of coffee, their cafe is here at 145 North Coop Street.
We stopped in and grabbed a mocha, where the barista poured some absolutely gorgeous latte art. In contrast to the warehouse experience, this location in the heart of downtown Lancaster offers up a more traditional, relaxed cafe vibe. After vibing there for a while, it was time to set out once again on the Lincoln Highway.
Now, we were completely caffeinated out of our gourds. Even so, with so many stops, it's tough to do the whole drive in one day, and there's never a need to rush a road trip. So we decided to stop for the night near Lancaster. And I realized that this was a great opportunity to both honor a Lost Lincoln Highway attraction and provide a much-needed boost to Cassie's cultural sensibilities. To the latter point, I have realized that one of the growing points of friction in our relationship is her general indifference to, frankly, the immaculate talents of German screen actor Klaus Kinski. whose most famous film, Fitzcarraldo, is all about a tumultuous journey he takes on a steamboat while attempting to build an opera house in Iquitos, Peru. To help her better appreciate Kinski's acting, I thought that simulating the experience of being on the set of Fitzcarraldo would help her see his genius. And it just so happens that right outside of Lancaster, you can in fact spend a night on a steamboat, just like in Fitzcarraldo.
Ahoy! And all aboard the Fulton Steamboat Inn. This wildly unique hotel is named after Robert Fulton, who in 1807 designed and built the first steam-powered ship, the Clermont. And it turns out he was born in a small farmhouse just a few miles from here in 1765. It's the off-season, but between Memorial Day and Labor Day, you can take tours of the house where he was born. There's various tributes to his contributions to aquatic transportation in the area, and this hotel is one of them.
And the original owners of this establishment decided, well, wouldn't it be cool if we had a boat instead of just a hotel named after him?
The Fulton Steamboat Inn is a family-run business that's been nestled in the Pennsylvania Dutch countryside since 1990. Nick's father is one of the owners, and he's been working here since he was in high school.
And then over the years, it just kind of grew and grew. We added on the restaurant, the duck and koi pond in the back and front of the boat. We love having all of our feathered friends get fed duck food, the indoor pool and hot tub.
It's like a little utopia here.
It sure is. It definitely takes you back to the age of simpler times, you know, when you could just kind of stroll and relax and enjoy a 5-cent soda.
This is a hotel that encourages exploration. As ragtime music echoes through the warmly lit halls, you'll discover fun nautical touches, antique-looking furniture, fireplaces, even an inviting tavern with fresh beer from nearby Victory and Trogs on tap. The cozy historic theming continues into the rooms as well. Another fireplace, and vintage flourishes everywhere you look. This phone was my favorite touch. All in all, as far as lodging on the historic Lincoln Highway goes, this is the cream of the crop in both comfort and quirkiness. And since we were on a coffee-centric journey, we asked Nick what they had brewing.
We partner with Lancaster Coffee Company. They have amazing coffee blends. Currently, we're using just their signature blends, but we are working on creating our own unique Steamboat Inn blend itself, which will be sold in both the gift shop as well as in the restaurant, and we'll have it out at our coffee station for those in the morning.
After exploring the hotel for a while and grabbing dinner at the attached Huckleberry's restaurant, where we had an awesome server,
Enjoy your meal. This is Ro, the server.
it was time to settle in and begin Cassie's immersion into the mind of Klaus Kinski and his character from the steamboat-centric film Fitzcarraldo. To set the mood for the night, I put on some royalty-free opera, and with that, she drifted off to sleep.
Yes, I did dream of Klaus Kinski, and yes, it was terrifying. But I also dreamt of another roadside attraction, the Grandview Ship Hotel. Because, you see, the spirit of another steamboat lives on along the Lincoln Highway. One of its most iconic sights in the days of old was this lost attraction, a hotel and restaurant in Bedford, not far from the Coffee Pot. It stood on this spot on a high, sharp curve at an elevation of 2,464 feet, where you can see 3 states in the distance: Pennsylvania, Maryland, and West Virginia. It was the brainchild of entrepreneur Herbert Paulson, who built a 4-story castle-shaped restaurant and hotel here in 1928. Soon after, inspired by how the rolling fog below often looked like waves, he changed it from a castle to a steamship, and thus the SS Grandview Point Hotel opened on Memorial Day in 1932.
In 1978, a new family took over and rebranded it as Noah's Ark. They even had the whole mountain renamed to match the biblical theme.
But by that point, the new Pennsylvania Turnpike was siphoning traffic off of the Lincoln Highway, and this beautiful lookout spot became a pretty big detour away from a much more efficient route across the state. It closed down in the 1980s, and in 2001, its empty shell sadly burned down.
But you can still pull off and walk the grounds where the hotel once stood.
And while its decades of history along the Lincoln Highway are now just distant memories, the dream of ship-based lodging in the rolling hills of Pennsylvania lives on inside the bulkheads of the Fulton Steamboat Inn.
Soweit ich stehe, eines Tages werde ich großen Abernack, Iquitos bringen.
I think she started to make some good progress. Anyway, the next morning we had breakfast in Huckleberry's again, and then struck out towards Philadelphia for our last coffee stop, one that showcases a truly fascinating method for brewing coffee.
And of course, on your way out to Philly, don't forget to stop by and say hello to Big Amos, the Amish giant.
He's at the Hershey Farm Restaurant and Inn, but originally stood at Zinn's Diner in Denver, Pennsylvania in 1972.
You know, I feel different after last night. Like, something inside of me has just changed.
That's just the burden of dreams.
Our final stop was right in the heart of Philadelphia, which the Lincoln Highway passes straight through into New Jersey. Ray's Cafe and Tea House is at the edge of Philly's Chinatown, and since 1988, owner Grace Chen and her family have been brewing up coffee the way only the best shops in Taiwan and Japan do it, with a siphon.
It's just like one of the most complete cups of coffee you can get.
When we got to Ray's, it was packed. Clearly there's something special about the siphon coffee they brew here. So there are two basic methods for brewing coffee. First is the drip method, like this automatic coffee maker here, where water briefly comes in contact with coffee grinds as it drips through the filter. Then we have the immersion method, like this French press here, where the coffee grinds are completely submerged in the water during the brew process. Now what makes a siphon so special? It's actually a combination of both of these brew methods.
When you put this top part into this bottom part, it creates a vacuum.
And that vacuum pushes the hot water up to the grinds at the top, where a barista like Lawrence Ray will stir it. That's immersion.
And the whole reason is to get full flavor extraction. What is happening, this process, since it's a closed system, there's no escaping, and I'm manually stirring. I'm doing diffusion for you. I'm getting everything out of that bean.
Then, after spending time up top, the heat is removed, thus getting rid of the vacuum, and the coffee drips back through a cloth filter. That's the drip method. This clarifies the brew.
You're getting full flavor potential, so it's just more robust. So it's just like one of the most complete cups of coffee you can get. A lot of people, after they try this coffee, they tell me this is the best they've ever had.
Well, we certainly had to put that to the test. On the wall across from the siphon bar is a huge diagram showing off all the coffees they offer and where they sit on a sliding scale of light to dark, with other important tasting notes.
I'm gonna bring you the coffee over, right?
Ryan went for the Colombian coffee, the current house recommendation.
Oh wow, it's wonderful. You know, the full immersion and the filter, the combination of those two things really accents the citrusy notes of the coffee, but it keeps it silky smooth too, which is a really hard combination to get.
But don't just take our word for it. While we were there,
oh my goodness.
Who should we run into but famous Philly foodie,
Wow.
Doug of @ChaseU.
But where are we going next?
So what do you think of the coffee?
The coffee, the ambiance, the people, what's not to like here? Tip of the tongue on this place, gotta be a 10 out of 10, right?
If you follow Doug already, you know attaining a tip of the tongue 10 out of 10 rating is no easy feat.
One of them's the siphon coffee. One of my favorites, not only just a good coffee, but it's also just entertaining to watch it happen.
It truly is. All the siphons are front and center at the coffee bar, and it's like watching a team of mad scientists at work on a tasty chemistry experiment. Siphon coffee in Philly is the legacy of Grace Chen. She moved to America in 1981.
Our name in Chinese is Little Bumblebee. There was a Little Bumblebee in Taiwan before my mom came here. When my mom immigrated in the 80s, she was looking for a place to drink coffee and tea, and she was like, there's nowhere to go. In the 80s, most American people, there wasn't such thing as coffee culture back then yet. In Asia, they've always been like, let's go out and drink tea and coffee. So she's the kind of person who was like, okay, then I'll just make my own.
And Grace's unique blend of siphon coffee and a menu chock full of delicious Asian food quickly took Philly by storm.
There's a little sign right there that says Best of Philly 1990. We won that 10 times in a row.
And well deserved, because everything about Ray's, from the coffee to the food, to the retro Asian diner atmosphere, is top notch. Also keep an eye out for some artwork on the walls by Lawrence's nephew. Philadelphia is the 5th largest city in America, but its foundation, its heart, is small family businesses like this one that still find themselves packed to the gills every afternoon as regulars and new faces alike indulge in some immersion of their own into a rich and delicious cultural experience. So next time you're in Philly, be sure to make the detour down North 9th Street for an unforgettable meal, all brewed up by the family that's made it their mission to bring great coffee to the city since 1988. And now, with my own caffeine levels reaching critical mass, I figured it was time to again try to conquer Philly's most legendary feat of strength and endurance.
happening.
Each stop on our coffee road trip has dripped us into something different. Kickback launched us into the frenzied world of pinball. Square One's pitch-perfect process provided pristine brews. And Ray's surrounded us with rich family history and transported us to Taiwanese coffee culture. And we're only beginning to explore the frontiers of the Lincoln Highway's journey across America. We can't wait to see what other adventures are waiting to be discovered out there.
All right, it's been a blast. Now that we're all hopped up on caffeine, it's time to hit the road again. Thanks for joining us on this statewide adventure, and we'll see you next time for the next quick detour.